guys, so I thought whilst I had a little time to spare, I would finally film a video about my 100 Women Writers project. Now, this is something if you only follow me on YouTube, you probably don't know about, but it's a project I started over on my blog in August of 2016. The project itself is a list of 100 women writers who I would like to read in my lifetime. The idea was originally inspired by my mum, who is a massive fan of going through those 100 books you should read in a lifetime or 100 authors you should read in a lifetime lists that loads of mainstream media outlets have created. You know, the BBC has one, the Telegraph has one, the Guardian has one, BuzzFeed probably has one. They're all over the internet, really easy to find. A lot of them have very similar authors on them, although there are some variations amongst them. But both my mum and I were struck by how dominated these lists were by male authors, and that's the extent of them having, you know, 10, 15, 20 women, you know, significantly less women writers than male writers, not just a slight imbalance. And these aren't just lists that cover the classics, they also include 20th century literature and sometimes 21st century literature. And even if they were just covering the classics, you know, women were writing even if they aren't recognised as regularly as men by the canon. So for me, this just felt really ridiculous. So for me, this just really made me want to make sure I was recognising and reading amazing female writers. And in order to do that, I thought it would be fun to make my own list of 100 women writers. Not specific books by those writers, but just authors who write in a variety of different genres, non-fiction, fiction and poetry, and different spaces within that. Authors that date all the way back to antiquity to authors of the 21st century. Authors I chose myself, women writers who were already on those 100 greatest authors you should read lists, like Jane Austen, who's always on those lists, so classics everybody knows, as well as authors that were suggested to me by my mum and by my friends who are on BookTube, who I did ask at the time if they had any suggestions for, because I know that they read in different genres to me, so might know of some really well respected authors writing in their field. So that's how I kind of came up with the list, and I shared it on my blog, like I said, in August last year. Those of you who did see it responded really well to it, and I know a lot of you have decided to also get involved and do your own 100 Women Writers project. Some of you have taken the list exactly as I've shared it, and others of you have added a few of your own authors, and that's because it is by no means an exhaustive list. As soon as I'd finished the list, there was more authors I wanted to add onto it, but in a way it's still just quite nice to have that list, isn't it? And for me, the project isn't I have to read these authors in the space of 2 years. It's just a nice thing to be, you know, quietly muddling away at and ticking off as I go, as well as a list to look at if I'm, you know, not sure what to read next. So I thought it might be nice to actually share it with you on YouTube for those of you that haven't had a chance to look at my blog, and also, whilst I'm here, take this opportunity to have a wee look through how I'm going. So I'd already read some of the authors on the list when I started this project, but I have read a few more since I posted it on my blog. It's been almost a year, not quite. So let's have a chat about the authors I've read on that list, and maybe some of the authors I'm particularly keen to get to soon. So the list is in alphabetical order according to first name. I'm not sure why I decided to go by that, but that's the way I've done it. And of the A's, I had already read Ali Smith, Angela Davis, Alice Walker and Angela Carter, but since making the list I have also ticked off Audre Lorde, who was a writer of poetry and non-fiction and essays, and she was a black female lesbian activist who just wrote about all of those topics and was really, and had a lot of impact, I believe, on kind of the conceptualization of intersectionality within feminism. And I read Sister Outsider by her, which I have talked about in a couple of videos, so I'll link those if you want more detail, but I did really enjoy it. It was a collection of essays and speeches, some of which I thought were more powerful than others, but overall was a really good reading experience. I only have 2 B's at the moment, which are Bell Hooks and Betty Smith, and I haven't read either of those yet. And with the C's, I've still only read the same amount of authors. I'd already read Caroline Duffy and Charlotte Bronte, who I have still read, but haven't read any more C's from the list. I have, however, read another D. I'd read Donna Tartt, but I had not read Daphne Du Maurier, and that was quite a recent read for me. She is an author that wrote in the 20th century and is pretty much raved about across BookTube, and finally I got around to reading the one that everybody says to read first, and that is Rebecca, and I enjoyed this book. I will definitely be picking up more of her books. They're kind of mystery, gothic tales, but you know, written later than when that genre kind of came about. And yeah, I really enjoyed Rebecca. It was very intriguing, and I'll definitely check out more by her. Of the E's, it's the same. I've still only read Elizabeth Gouge and Emma Donoghue, but to the H's I have added. I had already read Han Kang, but I have now also read Helen Oyeyemi, and I've actually read at least 2 books by Helen Oyeyemi since making this list. I read White is for Witching and Boy Snowbird. I'm trying to think if I read anything else by her. I think it's just the 2, but I have definitely been kind of set on a path of wanting to read more Helen Oyeyemi because her prose are absolutely stunning. And I don't describe authors' prose as beautiful or stunning willy-nilly. It is very, very applicable to her writing. It is a real pleasure to read. Of the 2 I's, I still have only read Isabel Allende. The J's too remain the same. I had already read J.K. Rowling, Jane Austen, Jeanette Winterson and Jacqueline Wilson. The only L I have read at the moment is still Louise O'Neill, who I had already read before making the list, and I've yet to read any of the K's on the list. I have, however, read one more M than I had before making the list. I'd already read Margaret Atwood, Mary Beard, Maxine Hong Kingston, Muriel Spark and Marjane Satrapi. Obviously a lot of female writers with M names crept up onto this list, but I have also, since making the list, read Maya Angelou. I read the first in her like very many part autobiography, which begins with I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. This again is a book that so many people talk about. It is a real classic of non-fiction, and I am so glad that I have now read it and can engage in that conversation, as well as it having been a very interesting read about Maya Angelou's early life. This one covers her childhood up until kind of the end of her teen years, going into her 20s, I believe. I haven't finished any of the N's yet, but I have started a book by Naomi Mitchison, which I talked about in a currently reading video, and I'm enjoying so far, so I'm glad to have got onto that. Of the R's, I had only read Robin Hobb before, but have now read all of the R's? No, but 2 more of the R's. There's 4 R's. I've read Roxane Gay. I read her essay collection Bad Feminist, which I enjoyed. It's not my favourite book on feminism ever, but it was certainly enjoyable. And I read Rokeya Shekhawat Hossein, and what I read by her was a short story, The Sultana's Dream, that's what it was called, and this is kind of referenced as one of the earliest feminist utopians. It's a really short little story, but it was really interesting to read. The S's remain the same. I had read Sappho, Sarah B. Pomeroy and Shirley Jackson, and that is still where I'm at with those. I've yet to read my T, which is Toni Morrison, or my U, which is Ursula K. Le Guin, and nor have I managed to progress beyond having read Virginia Woolf of the V's. I have not read my W, which is Willa Cather, but I have read one of my Z's, which is Zoe Fairbairn's. I read one of her feminist dystopians from the 1970s, which was Benefits, and really enjoyed it. I'll link a video which I talk about it up here and down below. But that's how I'm getting along so far. There are certainly so many authors on here that I'm super excited to get to. Some of the ones that stand out to me as people I'd like to get to very soon would be, well, obviously finishing Naomi Mitchison. And in saying that, I did actually begin a Nnedi Okorafor book, which we read for the Feminist Orchestra book club, but didn't get to the end of it and would still like to return to that book. I haven't yet read any of the O's or the P's. Ruth Ozeki and Liz Lockhead are 2 of the authors in particular that are pretty high up on my to-read list at the moment. I'm still a little bit ashamed to say I haven't read any Mary Shelley or any Mary Wollstonecraft, so I would like to sort that out as well. And Monica Ali's book, which I forget the name of at the moment, oh, you'll know what one I mean, is pretty high up on my TBR list. But I'd love to know your thoughts if you have a look at the list, if there's any authors on there that you're interested in reading. Would engaging in this project be something that was interesting to you? Do let me know who you think I should prioritise of the list next. And yeah, I just thought it would be interesting to talk about this in a video. Obviously it's just been a bit of a chatty, rambly one, but I hope you enjoyed it. I like keeping up and ticking off things on lists, so I just thought it might be nice to kind of bring that over to this channel. But I will probably do some more blog posts about the project in the future, so you can check those out as well. But until next time guys, happy reading, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye!